21 million out of op money. We created a puka of $7 million per budget, but in addition, they were looking at additional voted for it, that basically transfers more power to all of you. It says things like the board shall adopt rules and regs having the force of law to carry out the provisions of this charter, including 1, the internal management of the authority, and 2, allocation of decision-making responsibilities between the board and the administrative staff. Now, shortly, you're going to be bringing on, I understand, a new executive director out recruiting. I don't know where exactly you are, but someone will show up. At that point, I think it's time to tell the executive director, here's the line that you can go up to, and here's what we're going to do. And it's laid out and made clear. And it can be all kinds of things. I was just thinking, what would I want if I was on the board? I'd want to approve any and all amendments to the full funding grant agreement. It's not clear whether you can or can't, but I would just put it right out there that you want to be able to do that. Some other things. Oversight on audits. Who decides? You do? Or does the executive director decide? Criteria for extending a rail line, if that happens. Who decides that? You or the executive director? How about things dealing with TOD and impacts surrounding affordable housing? Do you leave it up to the executive director, or do you decide? Intergovernmental agreements and amendments. At what point do you step up to approve, and at what point does the executive director get to do it? Even things like public testimony, scope, matter, oral, written, exemptions. Does board approve it? Does the executive director approve it? These are things that I think should be in your board policy, and making it clear to the executive director how far he or she can go and what your responsibilities are. And I encourage you to take that up. The amendment was passed in November. It became effective in July. And I think it would be a good time to take a look at your board policies and see where you can make it clear. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about was the issue of audits. And I wanted to say that, one, I support audits. And I disagreed with Dan Grabowskis when we had the city audit, and he pushed back hard, and I told him privately, I think we should accept an audit and look at it, and we can agree on certain things, disagree on others, but I think audits are very useful. Help us review what we've done, help us decide where we made mistakes and how we can improve, and also audits confirm on the things we're doing right. But it's how do we use them? What do we do with them? And I brought some of these audits along with me, and I see you have them on your agenda, but we have the city audit that was done in April of 2016, very extensive, a lot of good points made here. I question how many of you guys have read this on the board. We have this PMC report, the 2016 risk refresh report done in June of 2016, final. Very good. Project management oversight. We have the APTA peer review, which Mike Formby, your executive director, our former DTS director, and I pushed hard for after meeting with the FDA in San Francisco, which was kind of the come to Jesus meeting about, hey, we are not giving you more time and we need a recovery plan by April, and we mean it. But we asked them, what else can we do to find out where we're making mistakes? They said, do an APTA peer review. A review by your peers, by this transportation authority. It was done. It's excellent. I'd ask, how many of you have read this report? What were the main points in this report? There were a few. And they're critical to what you guys do, I believe. We have the HART response in July. So you guys responded. And this I found, which is interesting, this is in the Office Inspector General, separate from the Department of Transportation, that's auditing the FTA. So they have audits. And they're auditing the FTA on what the FTA is doing on our project and other Western projects. It's just interesting to see how they're criticizing what the FTA can do better. The point is, a lot of information. A lot of it's still not being implemented, although I'm glad to see on your agenda you're going to be talking about things that you're going to be implementing. There's so many things you could spend a lot of time improving just with this. But in addition, you have monthly reports to the HART Board of Directors from Murty and others. You have the HART Board Finance Committee and Project Oversight Committee looking at things. You have monthly reports to the FTN, the Project Management Oversight Committee. You have monthly meetings with the Project Management Oversight Committee person. You have quarterly meetings with the FTA. You have FTA triennial reviews. You have FTA and PMOC audits. You have financial audits from independent financial institutions yearly. You're audited by the council every time you go before them and look at the hearings you can sit there for hours and hours and hours to ask questions, and you have to provide information. You go before the City Council Budget and Finance Committee. You go before the neighborhood boards all the time. You have weekly meetings with me in which sometimes I wish everyone else could sit in that meeting and see how they go. And the past couple were not very pleasant, right, Marty? You have improper payments and elimination of Recovery Act of 2010, where you're being reviewed to see are you doing the payments correctly. You have the audit. You have the city auditor who's auditing, and you have the National Transit Database reporting requirements. The point is you have a lot of reports being given, and it's what do you do with that information? Do you do another audit? You know, what is a forensic audit? The only time I've heard of a forensic audit is as a lawyer, Terry Young. It's when you're doing an audit preparing for litigation. I don't think any of us are looking for litigation. We're looking to be better. And audits that teach us how to be better or tell us how to be better or confirm practices that are good, we need to know that. So perhaps more audits, or obviously there are going to be a lot more audits, but perhaps an audit looking at how you control construction costs, or why did construction costs go up, is something I think would be worth looking at. But they need to be read. But more importantly, they need to be implemented. And I can speak as a former legislator. We loved audits. We issued audits every year. They come into my office and we put them on their shelf. We thought the audit was doing something. The audit is doing nothing. It's what you do with the audit after the fact. The implementation of the audit is what's critical. So, while I think audits are important, I don't want them to become a distraction. Use what's in them. But there's so many other issues coming up that I think are even more important to pay attention to. Issues like electrification of the system. We're almost ready. We pushed a car up on the track. Everything worked. Now we need to run electricity for the system and see how that works. And will it stop at a station? Will the doors open? Will the computer system manage everything properly? This will take months, if not years. Let's get it done sooner so we can be ahead of schedule. As you come into town, you have the final 4.8 miles. We're working hard to tell our bidders to proceed with RFP proposals. But what about the utility relocation on Dillingham? What are we doing about that? As mayor, if I was on your board, I'd be looking at creating a separate RFP to relocate utilities now, so you don't create greater delay and get rid of risk. So whoever bids on the last 4.8 miles says we don't need to worry about that because someone else took care of it. At least it should be looked at. At least it should be looked at. And finally, that last city center RFP, where are we? Because of the delay in getting the funding for the last 4.8 miles, are we behind schedule? Can we still tell them to proceed? Are we another year of delay? I've been told through that Pono study by Jones, Langs, and LaSalle, every year delay is $114 million in increased costs. Can we save something and get it out there quicker? Will there be upcoming conflicts that may impact on that? These things need to be focused on by all of you. Addressed and solutions proposed and moving forward. So don't forget the big picture. As we, instead of fighting about how many more audits do we need and what type of audit do we need, there is so much information that can be used, and there's so many things coming up that are so critical that I don't want to lose sight over this dispute on how many audits and what type. But I want to thank all of you for letting me come, and I want to thank you again for your hard work. You guys can't quit. As hard as it is, you got to keep pushing forward. It's so important. It's worth it. We may not see the full benefit in our lifetimes, but what's going to occur after this project is done is going to change how we live in some very similar kinds of ways, making us keep our aloha, helping us live better in neighborhoods and in small communities on this side of the coal loss. So I want to thank you so much for agreeing to serve, for taking the abuse, and coming back and taking more. Thanks so much. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll get out of your way. Thanks for letting me speak long.
Any questions for the mayor? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you know, when I read the newspaper articles about this calling for another audit, and in our last deliberations on that issue, I mean, I was not in favor of doing another audit for the simple reason that you pointed out. We've gotten a lot of audits done. We've gotten a lot of information. We've incorporated the recommendations. We've directed Murthy to implement them. We'll get an update today. And so I felt that it would have been a waste of time and money, frankly. But I recognize the fact that the press, the general public, are not privy to all the internal effort that goes on in HART. Because on a project this complicated, they can't possibly be, not unless they devote 100% of their time and effort to it. And so the only reason another audit might be something to consider is simply because the public's asking for it, and it might help ease their mind that there's another independent source that's saying, hey, yes, we agree with all the other audits and reports and recommendations, and here you go. And we're already implementing those things, so maybe it will help instill more confidence in the public, which is, I think, a worthy endeavor for this organization. But I'm not a politician. I don't get voted on the board. This is purely a volunteer position. And so, as I've always maintained, the downside for lack of public confidence really ultimately falls on you, unfortunately, and the council members and the legislators and so on. I just sit here to try to do the best job I can for the interests of the public. So given those considerations, Mayor, I'm just curious, if you still feel that, we don't need another audit, or would you think maybe we should think about it?
Well, like I said, I'm not opposed to audits, and I ran through a whole bunch of them that you have before you. You asked an interesting question: why are audits done? Are they done for the public or for the people who are building the system? At the end of the day, we're doing these audits so you have the information you need to continue to make sure we're doing everything possible to get the system built for the least amount of money and at a quicker pace. That's what I hope, anyway. But yes, there's a public component. As mayor, I mean, from day one, people said there's no information on rail, and I would provide binders of information. And then they say, well, you're trying to confuse us because you're giving us so much information. A lot of this information is out there because people demand it, and you provide it. And yeah, it takes a lot of time to read through it. I don't know what to say about that other than you want it, it's going to be provided. So I guess in a roundabout, if you feel as a policy, this board feels you need another audit done in some way, I would say that's your decision to make, and I would support it. But I'd be asking, what kind of audit? What is the goal? How does it build off the audits that we have? And then what are we going to do with it? Because if you're getting the audit and not implementing, then it is a waste of money and time. And you're misleading the public to think that somehow this audit is going to make a difference. Because if you're not using it, it's just a piece of paper you put on your shelf. So having said that, if it's going to make a difference, yes. I mean, there isn't a day that I don't ask someone on our staff or when I meet with you, how can we get a better handle on cost, control expenses, and get the schedule ramped up? Can we finish before 2025? Anything that gives you ways to do that, I'm in favor of. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, but that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes,
Yes.
At the last board meeting, I think the board's action was against doing a forensic audit. I don't think that any of us took the position to foreclose a special audit of some type that we could all agree on would be helpful to move the project along or to even do a lessons learned. The one caveat that I would say at this point is that our charge as a board is limited to building the elevated fixed guideway system consistent with the minimum operating segments, and that's, East Kapolei to Ala Moana and whatever the council extends at a later time. It is not looking at alternative ways to build rail. And that was what I thought was being asked to be considered through a forensic audit, and that is looking at the things that we've done or could have done better, or the costs that could have been or saved or were spent inappropriately as a means of justifying another approach to building rail that is not the elevated fixed guideway. But the charter is really clear. What the people voted on when they approved the rail is very clear, and I've read the charter. I've read it like 3 or 4 times since I've taken this appointment, and it's clear that it's outside of the scope of our responsibility to look at alternatives. Certainly, we can look at ways to do things better, but if the ultimate goal is to use the information to come up with a recommendation to do something else other than build the elevated fixed guideway system, then I would not be in favor of that.
And as mayor, I'd say I think your task is to build the 20-mile, 21-station elevated fixed guideway under the full funding grant agreement. That is your task and your responsibility to the people of this island. If someone wants to change the system, technology, that is a policy decision to be made by the Honolulu City Council. They're two different. So I agree on that point. And I did read the letter, and they did talk about alternatives, at grade and all of these things we've talked about for decades. You're not there. You're building an elevated fixed guideway system, 20 miles, 21 stations, driverless system.
Yes, great.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I want to add at this point is, because I think the question has been raised, by implication, that perhaps we're not, as board members, reviewing everything. And that there's a lot of material out there, which certainly is. So I just want to reiterate what Vice Chair Lee said, that no, we're not politicians. We're just regular citizens like everybody else. We do read the material, we do the best job we can. And that I think the one thing we do share, for the most part, is our desire to see this project succeed in the best way possible at the most cost-effective way possible. I mean, we're all taxpayers too. Some of us pay a hell of a lot more taxes than others, in fact. No, we want to see the money well spent. I think we also share a desire to see the future of Oahu and Honolulu insured for future generations. That's our goal. And so we do pay attention to what we're doing. We do take this seriously. And we're mindful of what other people say, but what it comes down to, it's our responsibility. And we do take it seriously.
Thank you. I appreciate that reaffirmation. Good to hear.
Yeah, and, I'd just like to say that, Glenn O'Hara and I met with the Salvage the Rail folks last week, and they have some very impressive consultants that shared some very interesting ideas about going on grade, stopping at Middle Street, all of that stuff. But as I told them, and as Ember stated, that's not our decision. The charter's clear. I'm staring at it right now. Yeah, we're limited to developing the fixed guideway system, which is a defined term, which means the minimum operable segment approved by the City Council, and any extensions. So I told them, thank you for their time, and I think it's fascinating what their ideas are, but they're talking to the wrong people. They really need to go to the council and probably the legislature. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate making that clear, and I agree with you 100%.
Any other one? So I just want to last comment, I guess, Mayor, is that you're correct. As being the person has been here from day one, that is our goal. Our goal is to build that elevated system and do it as prudently as possible. So we'll take everything into consideration in what you have talked about today.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for allowing me to speak longer than 2 minutes. I appreciate it. Thank you for all your hard work.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Moving to item number 3, approval of minutes, meeting minutes of the June 22nd, 2017 meeting of the Board of Directors.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have a comment to make. These are minutes for the entire meeting, and the last page of the minutes refer to how we adjourned and reconvened on July 6th. So I would like to recommend that we defer any approval of these minutes until we can add what we did on July 6th.
Okay, and that was a call for recess. It's not adjournment, but recess.
Recess, yes.
Okay. So the motion is to get it deferred until we include our meeting on the July 6th itself.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Okay. Item number 3 is deferred. Item number 4, American Public Transportation Association, or the APTA peer review update. Sam?
Mr. Chairman, just before Sam comes in, we just heard from the mayor also about his concern of implementing all these audit recommendations and these peer review recommendations. So we have been diligently going through all the recommendations, and wherever we can immediately implement them, we have done it. Where there is an organizational structural improvements that we have done. So Sam is going to go through all of them as to where we are to each of those recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Sam?
Good morning, Chair and Board. My name is Sam Carnaggio. I'm the project director, been the project director for the past 3 years. actually was originally came out of the 2016 risk refresh by the PMOC. Spoke about for a couple months, and as the mayor mentioned, in our meeting in San Francisco on August 30th, we asked what we could do, and they suggested an APTA peer review. Both HART and myself are members of the APTA, American Public Transportation Authority, and so we association, and we did contact a number of people. It took a number of months to get the right people on board, but the benefits were we got people who knew our business, who have done our business. We were able to get them on board in January. They spent 2 weeks here, went through a review, came up with their report in March. We gave an update to the board in May, and this is another update. We'll continue to do it as long as the board requests it. I've written and ran through a number of these with the CEO. I don't know that you want to go through all of them at your leisure, but I would point out a couple of what I consider to be the significant ones. The first one is the staffing, and it does ask for us to expedite finding a director of design and construction, which is a critical position. We lost Chris Takashigi in December. I picked up his responsibility since then. I'm happy to say that we have a new director of design and construction. He's sitting over here, Frank Kostic. He comes from his latest job is in New York with the MTA, with the Second Avenue subway, and he's got a great experience, and he's already picked up a lot. It's a key position, especially a key position for me since I've been carrying a lot of his work. We've also picked up a risk manager within the past 2 weeks, who's on board, Paul Johnson, and we picked up a safety certification manager. These were three, his name's Rayid Dwari, and these are three key positions that we needed filled. We are continuing with our management staffing. We have one or two more positions to fill. We're very confident within the next month we'll be able to fill those also. Another area that's touched upon in this report is the PMP, Project Management Plan. As a former FTA employee, I tell you that it's very important. We haven't updated it since 2012. Staff is working on a lot of things, but we are committed to getting this done. When we get our additional funding after the legislature, we expect to be able to update this and share it with the board. It's a pretty extensive document that we have. We'll be sharing it with you. Been working with board member Glenn O'Hara with the project management plan. He's been following it pretty closely. Another item that we've implemented that you'll see through here is the master integrated project schedule. The staff has worked very hard on this, and we do have one now. We do share with all the departments, keeping them abreast of what's going on, and letting them contribute to the schedule. The fourth item that I've got down here that I think is of significance is communication and collaboration. Each Tuesday, the CEO has his own meeting with the department heads also have a project coordination meeting in which all of the project management staff and other departments get together on Monday morning, and we spend an hour going over everything in detail on all of the contracts. Quite extensive, and it keeps everybody in the loop. We also have a follow-up meeting on Fridays with the different departments, so that before the weekend, we have no silos in the organization. Everybody knows what's going on. It's more an upbeat and positive not presentation, but discussion, to let everybody know a lot of the good things that are going on. So come the weekend, if they interact with other people, they can share those good thoughts. And the last item I'll mention that was of significance was a recommendation for a change control board and contract change order procedures. We have instituted that. The change control board has met on 2 occasions, and we're implementing that process right now. There still are a number of items that we still have to address. I want to let you know that we're continuing on a regular basis to communicate. If you'll go through this, you'll see that HART concurs on every one of the suggestions that were made. This was done by our peer professionals throughout the nation, and we take it very seriously.
Yes, Senator Murthy, what haven't we done on the peer review that's of significance, and is there a timeline of when we need to get this thing done by?
Well, as I said, the most important thing was the PMP, the project management plan. That's probably the most significant. If you'll notice on page, the first page under recommendations 1.0, at the bottom there was a discussion about the staff turnover. We've had a tremendous turnover in the past 4 years, especially. Probably out of 120-something positions, we've had 80 people turn over, 80 positions turn over. That's a lot. But the CEO met with the mayor and the city's Department of Human Resources about the possibility of changing from the 1-year contracts, and instead DHR came back and proposed that we create an internal committee to develop recommendations on pay levels, to increase the pay levels for people with specialized skills. And the CEO is in the process of putting together a committee.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, all of these recommendations are extremely important. This is a very fast-moving project. So we have a lot of catching up to do in addition to keep the momentum of the project itself. So what we are trying to do is prioritize some of these. For example, as Sam just presented, creating the change control procedures to make sure we have good checks and balances have been done, and creating the change control board to make sure that all the changes are validated by a separate group of individuals other than the field. So that's been done. So we have prioritized the recommendations and trying to implement them as quickly as possible. But there is some delays in some cases because of the process and procedure it takes to get it shortage of staff has definitely impacted some of it. Now with some of the key people on board, hope to catch up very quickly.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, I'm kind of curious about the change control board. The aptive peer review said to reestablish it. Why was it ever discontinued?
It was done prior to my arrival. I'm not sure the reasons for it. When I came in, I thought that was one of the first things I felt it should be in place, and that's been done. I cannot answer the past. I don't know.
It predates me also, Wes.
You mentioned the word departments a lot. Can you clarify that that's departments within HART as opposed to departments like city departments?
Yes, it's within HART, like procurement and construction and design.
So on your project management schedule, as you probably know, we have continuous conversations with your staff, with your consultants, with your subcontractors about permitting. And so I would request that that project, master project schedule, can that be shared with our department on a regular, consistent, continuous basis, so that it becomes a basis for us looking at the big picture and being able to service your urgent rush needs in a little bit more timely manner. That would be very helpful for us.
Certainly, board member.
Is there any other questions?
I have one last comment. On this past month's PMOC monthly report, it refers back to the peer review. And the mayor touched on it briefly, is that a technical peer review for the remaining contracts to identify opportunities to contain and mitigate, contain costs and mitigate risks. So in particular, we should be working on a team, how we should contract out the remaining city center work.
I think actually the reference was, you can correct me if I'm wrong, board member, but the reference was bringing somebody in from outside, somebody in the industry to take a look at our procurement to see if there's a better way to do certain things.
Yes, it referenced a group of experts. But I think we can, one of your answers was that, responses was that we could do it with our in-house consultants and staff. But we should be looking at that to see if there's a better way to procure it.
Oh, yes.
In relation to where we are on design, utility relocation design, in which segments can we, once we get, if we get the approval, how can we better procure this?
Yes, I've been in discussion with our procurement group on that issue. We will definitely do that.
And I understand we're still working on improving our project status or project trend reports.
Yes,
so we can see how it ties into our overall budget.
Yeah, we in particular a forecast
Right.
report. That's not a trend report. We're trying to develop the trend report, and hopefully that, we'll get it done by, we're looking, right now we've got it scheduled for probably, again, my forecast, the end of September.
Okay. PMOC also mentioned it, but if we can get it in an Excel format, so
Yes.
we can sort it, right?
Well,
Right now, it's
I
kind
think
of
that was
difficult to do
forecast.
that.
You wanted the forecast, I think, in the Excel format,
Right.
and we did get it to them
Okay.
because they wanted to do a couple different things and manipulate it in some ways.
Any more questions?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The plan is to work on updating the project management plan after the legislature determines the funding for the project. To what extent does the delay in updating the project management plan, which you said hasn't been looked at since 2012,
Oh, it's been looked at. It hasn't been
Updated.
finalized. Yes.
okay,
I'm sorry. It's in the process of being updated, but the funding and possibly the organization, you've heard the CEO mention reorganization, has a definite effect on the project management plan.
so when you're saying the legislature determines the funding, you can't update it until you know whether you're going to be building the city center segment. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
As opposed to needing the legislature funding to actually do the work to update it.
Correct.
All right. I
Okay.
understand.
It's not dependent on that funding for us to update it. I could have written it better.
Okay, I was just confused about that. Okay. To what extent does that make you less confident that you're imposing all the cost controls and you're looking at all the claims and being as fiscally responsible as possible?
Has nothing to do with it at all. We are doing that. We are definitely going through the fundings and we have a handle on the rest of it. This is just a question of telling you what we're doing and the plan for going forward.
Okay, sort of a critical issue though, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, it's for us to know what's going on and
Absolutely.
what the future holds. Okay.
Any other questions? Not. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Item number 5, City Auditor's April 2016 report update.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, this is the audit that just now the mayor talked extensively about done in 2015-16. They pretty much identified about 21 key items, various departments and the various issues in their audit. Most of them are interrelated, and I think we have provided copies of the response that I sent to the city, the part of your package. That was given to them on January 28th of this year. That was one of my first acts that I did as soon as I came on board to get this audit, go through it and make sure we implement all of those that are reasonable and that are applicable. They can do that. I've asked Robert you to go through in general how these 21 items are interrelated and what we are doing in implementing those audit recommendations.
Sure. Good morning, Chair Kim, members of the board. The city audit that was completed in April 2016 has 18 recommendations. And really, those 18 recommendations are summarized in three main chapters of the audit. First, one of the chapters is improve financial management and planning. Another chapter relates to improving project management and contract administration. And one of the last chapter has to do with looking at better planning and managing future rail costs. So, and I'll go over each one of those areas. In the areas of better financial management, we started the process maybe about 2 months ago, and we have worked with project control under Sam's direction to just get a better handle on project expenditures, not in terms of total, but in terms of monthly project expenditures, quarterly, annual, for the current fiscal year and also up to 2025. So our process is looking at all the major contracts that we have, and at the same time, try to coordinate the expenditures to the master contract schedule that are available, and we're going to do that monthly. On a general basis, quarterly, we'll have a comprehensive review, whether all the expenditures are continues to be on schedule with respect to the timing as compared to the master schedule. Another thing we started the process of is to meet with the project managers of each major contract. About a week and a
Regarding item number 7, Resolution 2017-8, the board went into executive session just to discuss with our legal attorney, just to make sure that what we are doing is the correct action. But, you know, what we want to do, board, if I could recommend deferring the action to Resolution 2017-8, and then primarily that is because we like to work with our state legislators and city and council and the mayor regarding putting something together. We already have resolutions 1 and 3 that are in place now, so it's just making sure that, again, we want to work with all parties involved regarding the funding increase itself. So can I get concurrence on the deferred action?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, Resolution 2017-9, Gift Policy Revision. Bertie?
This is based on the charter amendments. They have made recommendation that any acceptance of the concerning HART be received by the board rather than the executive director. So that's the basically in essence of the. I think Randy, you have any clarifications on that?
I believe it conforms with the amendments to the charter.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, in conformance with the policy, we got a gift here giving the Excellence Award for the MSF building. So I'm going to hand it over to you, to the chair, follow the gift policy.
So I can polish it. We can polish it. Oh, thank you. I'll show you guys. Thank you guys for an excellent job. I'll be handing it back to you to polish. It's nice. Okay, can I get a motion to the resolution 2017-9 of redoing the gift policy revision?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Item number 9, Resolution 2017-10 regarding the acceptance of Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfields Grant. Abby and Doug?
Aloha, Chair, board members. I'm Abby Mayer, Director of Planning, Permitting, and Right-of-Way at HART. I'm with Doug Collison, our HART Grant Manager. And very briefly, by way of introduction, HART was awarded a grant from the EPA, amount of $900,000, who's our environmental compliance and hazardous materials manager, who really had the initiative to put the grant application together. It was submitted right around the time of the inauguration when we had a lot of concerns about the EPA's capacity to continue its grant programs, but she had faith and put the application together and was awarded. To be extra clear, all the work that is going to be funded in the scope of work is work we're going to be doing anyway. It's not extra work on sites along the guideway alignment. And 2/3, $600,000 is specifically to help with the remediation of arsenic and heavy metals at the Evile station site. It's really most of the particulars. Doug's here to walk you through the mechanics and the fiscal requirements of accepting the grant and the responsibilities that we'll have, but that's really my portion of the presentation.
We're requesting for authority to approve the grant and accept it. It's $900,000 federally from the EPA. The overall match is about 85%. It's kind of broken down into 2 separate agreements. One's for assessments. That's 100% federal. And the other section is cleanup, where the future Evile station is going to be. That is 80% federal. So it's just going to give us a little bit more bang for our buck. That's why it was really attractive to apply for it. The administrative requirements on my side is It's only going to require one annual report per year, and we have available 3 years to use this money. So I would strongly recommend that we would accept the grant.
Well, thank you very much. Accepting money is always great. So we got two things in a row that we got from GCA and also now $900,000. So I appreciate that. Board, is there any questions? Other than that, thank you very much for you guys' hard work for getting that grant money. Can I get a...
So moved.
There you go. Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you again for $900,000. Appreciate it. Item number 10, letter of editor regarding special audit. You know, it was brought up a lot of discussion this morning, both mayor and going to the after review, seeing all the different audits that HART does go through. You know, and just quickly, just speaking in regards to the editor letter that, you know, came out in regards to this, you know, the board, not only Member Shin, but the board felt that at this time a forensic type of audit is not needed. A special audit is possibly down the line. You know, and hearing what we heard this morning, I think with what we're doing to APTA, also noticing all the staff changes, you know, whether they're leaving and those new that are coming in. I think we have a renewed energy with the staffing that's coming in, that they understand the, you know, what HART is going through financially and is being very prudent in the things that they do. Murthy, you know, changing the organizational structure as well to try to make it more efficient. I think it's going to help cut down some of the costs. But at the same time, I don't think we're not open to any type of special audit itself that, you know, I feel that we may need one down the line. We do have, we're looking at that new CEO coming in, and, you know, we want the input as that person as well too on how we move forward, as that will be the permanent CEO. So if the board, again, doesn't mind, you know, it's just a matter of...
Mr. Chairman, I respectfully disagree. I feel it's imperative that we conduct a forensic audit. The public has a right to know. Transparency has to prevail. There's a lack of confidence in this project. And I think with a forensic audit, we'll get to the root causes of the problems of the past so that we can make the necessary corrective action and proceed with this project with great vigor and in a robust way. But we have to revisit the past, and that can only be done through a thorough, intensive, specific forensic audit, not a general audit, not the audits that the mayor referred to, not the peer reviews that he and not repeat the mistakes of the past. History has a tendency to repeat itself, and we don't want to have a repetition of the mistakes of the past. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, thank you. It just reminded me that Brennan, before he left, was supposed to be putting a timeline together from the past to show the major events that happened along the way and cost-wise. Murthy, can you follow through, because, you know, Brennan is not with us anymore. Can we get somebody to do that report, continue that report and report it back to the board?
Yes, sir, we'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a timeline is not a forensic audit.
No, I know that, but because I know we have a lot of new board members that, you know, need to be brought up to speed on some of these things along the way. Yes.
Mr. Chair, one of the reasons I brought up this issue and I asked for this to be placed on the agenda is not related to the forensic audit, but related to how the board reacts when it needs to respond to a media, and specifically in your materials, it's the Civil Beat article. And because I thought that the Civil Beat article was incorrect, because we do have annual financial audits, and we've had it forever. And every governmental entity in the world has to have an annual financial audit. And that's what I really wanted to explain quickly in response to the Civil Beat article opinion. And so part of the issue is I haven't found or seen a policy of the board on how we react to media. And because I think that we need to have a kind of a rapid response, because now it's old news, and we've done a lot of explaining here today, as well as other people have explained it to the media since then. But when the media reports something that is clearly erroneous about what the HART does, or a policy, a stated policy of HART, I think we just have to have a process. So that was my why I asked to have this be put on the agenda, so that we could talk about this as a process. I think now, whether we do a letter to the editor, an op-ed piece, or something like that, it's old news. It's still an important issue. No disrespect to my colleague here, but it's the impetus for doing a response, I think, is time.
A resolution that we need to make with regards to this, or is this something just on a standalone policy, or?
Yes, Deputy Corporation Counsel Randall Ishikawa. Yes, as to if the board wants to adopt a policy, perhaps authorizing an officer of HART, a designated officer, or the board chair to respond, that could be something the board could do, or else the board could, if the board itself wishes to issue a response, it would be constrained by the sunshine law and would need to do it through the board meeting process. So those are the alternatives. However, boards and commissions have the chair responding in their capacity as the chair. So there are options, and those are some quick comments here. As to any more specifics, we can research it and present it if requested in an executive session.
Okay. Is there any questions or the pleasure of the board on what they would like to do moving forward?
I'm happy to have the chair be the rapid responder on something like this as a protocol.
Okay.
In the absence of not having a written resolution, I would like to make a motion to designate the chair as the rapid responder to any media events that need to be addressed because they include inaccurate statements of the agency.
Okay. So can I just amend that to chair and or co-chair in case I'm not around or I'm not able to
Or
answer that?
designee.
Chair or his designee.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Second.
that. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Item number.
Excuse me, Chair.
Sorry. Yes.
You can call me out of order, but on this issue of the forensic audit or
Yes.
any other audit, I would offer a suggestion that even though I'm a non-voting member, I cannot support a forensic audit at this time due to time and cost implications, and it distracts us from the main goal of building the rail. But can we, in the interest that some of our members are fairly new, and in response to Board Member Lee's comment about the public has a need, perhaps we can ask HART to summarize all the effective audits that we are now obligated and responding to audits that we are already obligated or are following up in terms of recommendations. So at least there's nice summary for all of us.
Okay. Board members agree?
Can we take that as a motion and I'll second it?
Okay.
I don't know if I can make a motion.
Oh, yeah. You can make the motion, though.
I will then make the motion to request the staff to prepare a summary of all the audits that have been conducted and a summary of the response to those audits.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Chair, I got
Yes.
a question. You know, I think the mayor brought up a good point. The mayor
Can I
brought up-
second the motion first
Yeah.
for discussion? Okay, thank you.
You know, we get, as we're,
Wait, hang on.
Well, I think the main reason I'm making the motion is because there's so much misinformation in the public that is generated by not having knowledge of what audits have been done and what's their content and how to. So I think it will be a very valuable document and people won't have to go around and collect stacks of paperwork and go sifting through them, but they're interested in the subject matter.
What's your thought that this would make the forensic audit unnecessary?
No, that's not what you said.
That's your
No, not necessarily. It's just, I believe the motion is just to summarize all the previous audits that we had to make sure where we are in case we did miss something along the
I
way.
think the mayor did a very good job on that. That's why.
Well, he didn't go, he went through what audits were done, not
And the peer
what,
reviews.
but not what answers to each of the audit, were. Did we take care of the problem? Are we following some of what the auditors had recommended? Yeah, and I think that's what it is. So we heard some today regarding a peer review, but we didn't hear of all the audits itself.
no, go ahead.
But I think that's a good idea because that'll give us the base of information to know what has been done to help us set the scope for any potential project or audit that is done going forward. Because I think that's one of our issues is what is the work that would be done.
Okay.
My concern basically is that, and I think we all deal with audits, and I think the mayor brought it up as well, there's a lot of audits that's been given to us, but who actually reads it? I don't know how you do an executive summary. I don't know how you do a recap on an audit that clearly states basically where the deficiencies are and the recommendations that how you fix those deficiencies. The audit, any audit is very explicit. The scope of work is very explicit. You want to know what the problem is, and from that problem, how you can improve that. How do you put that in an executive summary? I understand what, and see whether or not how these recommendations can be applied to what we have left to finish off the project. I think that would be very productive. I think it'll be the meeting will be very good in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, but more importantly, it will give HART an opportunity to go ahead and say, listen, all these things that we've invested in the past in terms of having experts come up with resolutions or solutions to how we can resolve, how to implement it in the segments that we have left and how best to move forward. I think that would probably be the best thing moving forward. So, well, I understand where you're coming from. I would not support basically doing a recap of what's already been issued out there that requires really detailed information in terms of and that's what an audit is. It's detailed information that is given to us to help us go ahead and improve. An executive summary doesn't do that. Every single report that I get is about this thick. The executive summary is 2 pages. How do we take an executive summary from the audits that were done previously and get good information? That would be my only concern.
Okay, I just thought the motion was, the summary itself was to go over and explain what has been done to improve it and make it better. So it's not just telling us what was audited, but also what HART has done to improve it and build upon that. So
Yeah, Chair, and that's the reason why I'm saying that, instead of maybe doing what's been done, why don't we take a look at what's left to be done with this specific project when it comes to the remaining segment, and take a look at the recommendations that were made and see how those recommendations can be applied to what's left. And then hopefully that will help us move these things forward much more quickly.
Okay.
The concern on the part of the average person on the street is, why is the administration so reluctant to have a forensic audit? Are they fearful? So I'm saying transparency would go a long way toward restoring public confidence in this project. Transparency is the big issue here.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I might
Yes.
just ask a point of clarification. I'm not sure I agree that the average person requires or desires that there be, that amount of money to be spent on an audit, forensic audit, because I'm not quite sure any of us understands at this point what that forensic audit would concentrate on, and which is going to be a big issue. However, my question is for this group, I'm a little confused. Where are we going with this? Do we need an executive session right now to discuss what we're going to do with respect to, pursuing it, or is this, where are we in this discussion? I would, before there is any decision made to pursue an executive, a forensic audit, I assume we're going to have to discuss that further. I just want to know when that's going to happen, or if it's going to happen.
Point of order.
Yeah.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded, and it's only to direct staff to prepare a list of the audits and reviews that have been conducted with findings and responses. And that's the only thing that is before the board at this moment in time.
That is correct, yes. So we do just have a motion and a second on this item itself. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye. Nay.
Okay. So I see 1, 2, 3. Am I?
So we raise hands?
Yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Or raise hands, I'm sorry. And those opposed? Okay. Motion is passed. Item number 11, right-of-way, Abby.
Thank you again, Chair and Board members. Abby Mayer, Director of Planning, Permitting, and Right-of-Way. I have a right-of-way update for the board for your consideration. It was requested at the last meeting. And so I wanted to get you up to date on where we are in our property acquisitions. I'll be focusing on our airport and city center segments, and have our budget information at the end. So in general, I won't read them off, but our goals are always to balance our construction schedule, timing, and property need dates with our budget, along with maintaining sensitivity in respect to property owners and displacements that we're creating by our project. We also have to remain in compliance with the Federal Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Act, and which spells out in very direct terms specific steps of property acquisition and relocation processes every step of the way. So that what we do is monitored by the FTA, and at several different points in the acquisition process, the FTA gives concurrence both on the adequacy of the appraisals, the amounts of the offers, and the terms of the agreements that we reach with property owners. As far as our airport guideway and stations contract segment, we have 49 tax map keys that are needed. We list here on this report 47 tax map keys with construction access. I would note that there are a couple properties that we list technically with construction access that have some ongoing either cost to cure, construction work that needs to go on in order to give full access to contractors, or ongoing legal issues that we're working with the owners on resolving. As far as our city center contract, I've broken it into two segments. One is Dillingham. Because we're anticipating contracts for the early relocation of utilities, we kind of treat that separately and upfront, and have put a lot more emphasis into clearing the Dillingham corridor for right-of-way needs. A lot of the properties on Dillingham, because the guideway will be in the median, are needed for roadway widening. They're not actually needed for guideway facilities, but we have station properties. So we have 47 total tax map keys and 33 technically available. But I would add that some of these tax map keys are grouped together. So oftentimes contiguous properties, say 2 TMKs, are owned by the same owner, so we'll treat that as one acquisition. So the 14 that appear to be needed, to break those down, 3 are already in escrow awaiting land court. 2 are intergovernmental properties, one HCC and one OCCC, and actually we've, since the date of this report, we've cleared OCCC, went before the Board of Land and had the area needed taken out of the executive order that grants public safety those lands. Again, that's for the widening of Dillingham in that area. We have a HECO property. We have 3 cost to cure properties awaiting construction. Usually the facade of buildings too close to the widened roadway will be altered. And then only 3 private acquisitions remaining on Dillingham. So while it looks like there's 14 tax map keys, and technically there are only 3 private acquisitions remaining in the Dillingham corridor. And then City Center from Eveleigh to Ala Moana Station, 77 total tax map keys needed, 24 of which are construction access is in hand. Really the emphasis of our right-of-way group has been in establishing, over the past few months, establishing a work plan and putting together the RFPs and contractors that we're going to need to make a final push over the next year, really targeting August 2018 to attempt to complete all right-of-way acquisitions through City Center. The slide about eminent domain, just to review, it comes up in media inquiries and inquiries from City Council and legislators quite often. We've filed only 8 eminent domain cases throughout the whole corridor. 1 on West Oahu Farrington, 1 Kamehameha Highway. There's 2 active cases in airport, and we're probably going to file 1 more before the end of this year. And then 4 cases active in City Center. So eminent domain has been used very sparingly. A lot of these cases involve title issues where there's a lack of clarity on who has title. So we use the eminent domain process in order to secure entry while title issues are being resolved. As far as budget, I've listed 3 different budgets here for your examination. So our original FFGA budget is in the first column. The recovery plan budget, what we're proposing, is in your second column. There is a proposed increase. You'll see there the current budget, the third column in the middle, is the budget we're now working off of. So to explain the changes, you'll see between the original FFGA budget and the current budget, we've actually had a decrease overall of about $6 million. That is due to the transfer of a contract out of right-of-way to design and construction. Otherwise, the budget has largely stayed the same. We have repurposed some of the acquisition funds toward contracts. That includes real estate consultants, legal fees, drawing a blank here on our other contracts. We have a series of a few contracts. The big ones are our real estate consultants. So it used to be Paragon, is now Colliers. And then, our appraisals are a big piece of those contracts as well. So in previous contract with Paragon, our appraisals were ordered through that contract. They're now separated out of the real estate contract and they're contracted separately. The expended column is accurate as of June 30th. So altogether, and you can see the categories in which we've spent, 132 of the 216 million has been spent already, and leaving a balance of 84 million. And that's the part of the presentation. Be glad to answer any questions on any of those.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I think you guys probably know this, but I didn't. Your report on the right-of-way doesn't include the pillars for the guideway? That's under another department?
The right-of-way is, so in certain situations we need to acquire land for the placement of the pillars, and sometimes they're in a state highway or a city roadway, which we have joint occupancy and use agreements for those in those locations.
Your Dillingham, can you go back to the Dillingham slide? That was only for temporary utilities. It's not for anything else.
No, that's all. The only thing actually missing from these numbers is we had a fairly recent determination by HECO that we're going to need to underground 138 kV lines along Dillingham. So the right-of-way need lines for that project have not been determined yet, but these tax map keys include the guideway columns will be in the median of Dillingham, but Dillingham will be widened. So a lot of these tax map keys are for the widened Dillingham roadway, but not for the guideway itself.
Okay, so it includes, this chart includes all the work on Dillingham, not just HECO?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So Abby, this chart, the next chart is CCGS. So physically, is this all of CCGS, or is this second chart just from Evelay to Almora?
So the city center contract will be from Middle Street to Almora. For the purpose of this presentation, we've separated the city center contract into Dillingham corridor and then the remainder. So this slide is Evelay to Almora.
Okay, now did we do, I know we got Frank just on board, but I think we need to, one of the PMOC recommendations was to work on how we're going to procure. Is this one big package, or are there things we can do so that certain areas we're good to go, or almost good to go? Okay, obviously we got problems on Dillingham. what about CCGS remaining? Right? While we're still working on Dillingham, so we need to work.
Yeah, we
on
are
those
working
issues.
on those strategies. One of the important issues is the availability. The funding can, if the funding is all available, can we just move ahead with the whole package to get it out? If not, the issue has been to advance the utility relocations. So that way, when the final contractor comes in, he has got a clear site to go ahead and do the
Because
construction.
we need to learn from the west side when we issued these huge contracts.
Yes, sir.
And we got HECO issues, we got sewer line, water line issues.
Absolutely.
Not resolved in Dillingham. But we pretty much resolved on the balance of it. So how best should we break up this project, if at all?
We will definitely come back with a recommendation on the strategy there. We just need to get some clarity on the funding, how for what we can do, what we cannot
Right,
do.
I understand.
But we are working with the final design of the utility relocations as we were talking
Yeah,
about.
because I know we don't have the answer on funding, but we should still be planning.
Yes, sir.
And I can also add that we have, from my knowledge, increased the SUE work, the underground exploratory work through City Center, and we at Right Away have been working very closely with construction on when they receive findings, identifying a schedule of need and which properties are needed in what order. So we are actively looking at that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different pieces, and part of it is your piece, and we got HECO issues, we got the border water supply issue, right? So we need all these pieces to come together.
It is the most complicated part of the program, yes.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that Colliers has replaced Paragon. Is it the local office of Colliers?
It is, yes.
And who are the primary individuals?
Gail Jennings is the project lead, and then is supervised by the local president of Colliers, Sarah Morihara.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, can I go back to the CGS, City Center Guideway Stations? And your budget does not include then, because you said the recovery plan budget is the 268, current budget 216. Does that include the cost for acquisition of right-of-way and for the city center area?
So the major changes, so you have about $52 million difference between the current budget and the recovery plan. About 20 million of the 52 is for utilities that were not anticipated at the time of the FFGA. A lot of those were already acquired. The remaining 32 million was a replenishment of contingency and amounts identified in the risk refresh exercise in 2016.
Okay, so is this dependent on new funding, or is it already in our budget, in existing funding?
This is the total overall existing funding.
Existing funding.
Yes.
So is it your view that we can make the acquisitions necessary to build the city center guideway and stations with existing funding? We just can't build the guideway yet?
Yes.
Okay. And the percentage then of completion you are, I don't know if I can read this right. It's for construction access, it's 30% completed?
For city center outside of Dillingham?
Yes.
Yeah, it's around 1/3.
And for Dillingham, it's 70% completed? Am I reading this right?
Yeah, it's about there. I don't have the percentages calculated myself, but that looks to be about right. Morris Atta, our right-of-way deputy, is here.
Microphone.
I'm Morris Atta, Deputy Director for Right of Way. I think I'm anticipating where you're going with this, in that you're looking at the budget amount that's remaining versus what we have before us in terms of acquisitions still needed. The one critical factor that needs to be considered is that much of the remaining acquisitions are all very tiny slivers of property, even though they're identified as individual acquisitions. The acquisitions themselves are primarily like green strips in front of property. So that may be the reason for the disconnect between the dollar amount that you're seeing and the number of properties that we have required before us in the city's administration.
The other thing I can add is that our availability for construction is different than our closed transactions. So the amount expended is relating to our closed real estate transactions. Our construction access might involve a right of entry or a property that's in escrow that hasn't been fully expended. So they're different metrics. It's a little bit apples and oranges.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate it. Moving to item number 12, construction and traffic update. Kainani, John, Justin, and Nick.
Aloha Board, Kainani Kraut, the West Side Construction Manager. We'll start on the west with the Wolf and Guideways. So the West Oahu-Farrington Guideway, again, anticipated completion of punch list items July 2017. The contract completion was in March. There's about 165 remaining items out of just over 7,000 that were identified, and we're working with court systems to turn over the guideway and safety security to make sure we have our certification in place. The West Oahu Station Group, we're about 22% complete. The contract completion is identified in the contract as March 2018 due to some initial delays. The contract is looking to be completed in June 2019. At Ho'opili, we've removed the false work for the box girders. They're excavated the elevator pits, and reinforcement is commencing. They're pulling wire for the lighting at the TCCR room. At UH West Oahu, we do have a conflict there that we're working through with the 46 kV relocation infrastructure that is going underground. Elevated beams at the west entrance of the building and ped bridge columns have been completed with the false work for the box girders on the east side of the guideway. And then at East Kapolei, we completed the grounding grid installation at the west foundation area and reinforcement for grade beams and concrete placement for future escalator and elevator pits. On the Farrington Highway Station Group, that's the one that's really visible in Waipahu, we're 25% complete. Contract completion is January 2018, and again, due to initial delays, it is anticipated to finish in February of 2019. The West Lock Station area is about 36% complete. The Mackay Ped Bridge and elevator structural steel is in place. There's 2 box girders placed and tension. The entrance building walls are construction and installing the interior utilities. On the Mauka side, the Ped Bridge has also been set with fabricating and erecting the elevator structural steel. At the Waipahu Transit Center, the station work is about 22% complete, and we're installing the formwork reinforcement for the box girders, walls, and bottom slab. On the Mackay side, we're installing the vertical raceway conduit and duct work and performing mass excavation. And on the Mauka side, we're demobilizing drills that we're doing the auger cast piles there. At LCC, we're about 9% complete. We're continuing formwork for the box girders, installing the walls of the ancillary building and the grounding grid at the stairway area, and excavating that elevator pits. H2R2 is about 92% complete. We are working with DOT to transition that. There was a slight delay due to a redesign on a bridge rail, so the anticipated completion is more like November 2017, but we do have to secure the site, so it's good The paving's been complete, the permanent striping's done, installing the slope matting, hydro seeding, just kind of wrapping up the work there. Cam Highway Guideway, we have executed a time extension, so the time extension and the contract completion date is now September 2017. We are still in the process of doing the highway medians. You'll see a lot of work going on there. There's two traffic signal upgrades that are remaining. We are doing widening at Pearl Ridge Shopping Center and Wanaloa Freeway, and there's a retaining wall at Waimalu Shopping Center. 100% of the track has been completed with the contact rail, and we're working with Core Systems to start turning over the rail there as well. And the CAM Highway Station Group's about 12%. The original contract completion was May of 2019. The contractor has been delayed in doing some of their drilled shafts at Pearl Highlands. So their updated schedule looks like August 2019, but those delays are on them. The Pearl Highlands Station, again, drilled shaft and column construction activities continue. There's about 18 out of the 32 production shafts that have been done, with 7 out of the 32 columns that have been completed. At Pearl Ridge Station, we completed the construction of CMU retaining wall and associated backfill operations. We're continuing trenching and installation of comm and power, basically doing the site work and utility work to get out of the ground there. At Aloha Stadium, we have in the last week turned over the station site from Kiewit to NON, so NON can start their station work in the area. This is just the graphic showing the percent by station rather than just by contract. MSF, we are looking to issue a final acceptance either the end of this month or the end of next month. KKJB has a delivery of isolation pads that are still due for the east side. That was part of the rail procurement under that contract. And then the safety and security certification is expected to be issued. We just advertised and in the process of evaluating the bids for Road B, which is associated with UH Park and Ride, and then the substation is at MSF is currently still in the planning stages. Now I'm going to turn it over to Justin.
Hi, my name is Justin Garrett. I'm the Deputy Director for Core Systems. I'll give you the systems update. We're 44% complete with vehicles and Core Systems installation. Our anticipated completion is October 2025, consistent with the completion of the City Center Guideway. MSF activities, we're about 80% complete, working towards completing TPSS and signaling work by fourth quarter 2017. Out on the Guideway, we have traction electrification work and signaling work happening on the Wolf Guideway. KHG, we have mobilized our traction electrification crews out there, starting to pull cable and land devices on that piece of Guideway. Communication systems installation is ongoing at the maintenance facility. This is in preparation for our functional testing and integrated testing of the train and signalings down the road a little bit. And then lastly, Waipahu Transit Traction Power Substation. We're on hold presently to begin that activity until we have permanent power from Hawaiian Electric. We have made some strides in the last couple of weeks where we anticipate that power being energized, everything goes well, by the end of the month. And that'll trigger follow-on activities to move us that much closer to the start of our dynamic testing of the vehicles. That's where we turn on power when we start that initial testing of the train itself.
Hi, good morning. My name is John Moore. I'm the construction manager of the East. And the airport utilities package, that contract has been completed and is in final closeout. The airport guideway and station group, we're about 9% complete through May. The potholing is about 2/3 completed. We have performed, SCG has performed 2 test shafts, 1 and 2, and they're in the various final stages of actually being evaluating the data that's been gathered through those test test shaft number 3, which is going to be over in the paintball area, is scheduled for next month, and that'll complete all of the test shafts that were being anticipated under by STG for this contract. The design is continuing slightly ahead of schedule across all areas. Right now, STG is still looking, and I believe it's very positive. They're starting in October. They're going to start permanent drill shafts on the western part. If you go out where KHG ends near Lowell Stadium, that section from there east, they have about 20 shafts they plan to get in before the end of this year. So they're actually working a little bit ahead of schedule. It's not listed up there, but we were talking about the city center section. I also have to be the project manager for the on-call contract, and I work closely with Abby and Morris. And we have been doing work along Dillingham and also in the airport. As they acquire properties, if the properties need to be modified, we have gone in to work with the owner and modify the property so it's still functional, has a functional use. We've completed a number of them. We're out there right now at OCCC. If you go by there, you'll see a lot of work going on in their parking lot. Please don't visit because they will arrest you if you go on their property. You have to be pre-approved. And also, we've been working on Mauna Kea, which is the relocation of Hawaiian Tail Duck Bank, that over a 4-block section that crosses across Dillingham. So there is work that's ongoing in the city center area that's clearing the way for whenever we get a design-build contractor that they have the space to work to help facilitate that construction. And that's the end of my report.
And then the last update is just some closures that are continuing to occur due to John's work, various daytime and nighttime closures between Alava and Radford Drive. And that's all we have.
Anybody have any questions for?
Just a question. You know the construction completion percentages. How far behind is your spend rate in terms of what you're actually paying out? In other words, when we get a financial at the end of the month, is it real time? If you're 40% complete of a particular project, how much have you actually expended out in terms of paying for the invoices attached to that 40% completion?
I'm not sure what report you're getting. I know the CMS usually is based on what is the invoices received from the contractor. And then we have a 30-day process to actually expend it from BFS. But I would have to verify the report that you get versus what we look at.
Bertha, can we just take a look at what the spend rate is?
Sure.
I want to make sure that when we're looking at the finances and we're looking at it is real time. I know we lag quite a bit, just like you, because of the 30-day. But I don't want to report that we have so much money, basically, as far as the end of the month financials, when in fact that money has already been committed to work that's already been completed. So I think having that number would help us make a better determination in terms of how best to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you for a very comprehensive presentation. Have we had any incidents of vandalism or graffiti along the completed thick guideway?
Yes.
And has it been major, minor, or?
We have dealt with it, so we've taken care of it.
And the cost of remedying the
Currently,
problem?
until it's in our possession, it's on the contractor.
And do we have any
secure their
protocols in place that would prevent future incidents of vandalism or graffiti?
I'm not quite sure. We're working with safety and security as well as maintenance and operation. They'll be the ones accepting it. And we have put in place, the fencing. I'm not quite sure how we're handling security once it's turned over, but we can get that information and report back to you.
What about homelessness? Any homeless residents there?
We have worked with the state as well as DFM on those issues as they arise, as we're notified. So we're continuing to do that. Once it's turned over, depending on the structure with DTS and DFM,
I'm not sure who will be taking over that responsibility.
We have to be ever vigilant as to vandalism, graffiti, and homelessness.
Yes, I agree.
Continuing problem. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, Justin Garrett, I want to just thank you for your service for HART. I know this is your last meeting and you're finishing up. When are you leaving? At the end of this month?
The 28th, next
28th,
Friday.
next Friday. So again, I want to just thank you for all the work you've done. Excellent with the core systems itself. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been a
Best of
pleasure.
luck to you.
Thanks.
On item number 13 and 14, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, you have the reports in your package. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer on those.
Any questions, board? If not, moving on to item number 15, which is report of the permitted interaction group.
Excuse me, I think I do have one question.
Oh, go ahead.
It's kind of a detailed one. Let me, on page 9 of the monthly report,
Yes, sir.
at the top of that page, there's a project progress chart. And under the late plan column, the design progress row, there's a 69.1%. In the prior month, it was actually 69.2%. I would think that actually we'd be making more progress towards design, not less. And maybe this is just a technicality or a mathematical rounding error or whatever, but it just struck me as being very odd that we're going backwards in design. Please assure me that that's not the case.
It's not the case. Thank you for pointing it out.
Yes, would you please look into that and see if there's some kind of, if it's a typo or some other concern we should have on that?
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, item number 15, report of the permitted interaction group to recruit, solicit interest from, screen, and negotiate with candidates for interim executive director and chief executive officer and/or executive director of chief executive officer. I'll report that to Terry. Executive session.
Yep.
I'd like to request that we move into executive session, so pursuant to HRS section 92-4 and subsection 92-5A2, to consider the hire, evaluation, dismissal, or discipline of an officer or employee of charges brought against the officer or employee where consideration of matters affecting privacy will be involved, as well as under HRS subsection 92-5A4, to consult with its attorneys for questions and issues on a matter pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities.